Welcome to episode 5 of Translated's adventure around the world in the Ocean Globe Race. My name's Paul Cayard and I'm your host here this week and every week as we follow Marco and the team in their epic journey around the planet. I'm back here in my San Diego office this week. Beautiful weather, the juniors are out sailing, so I really feel at home bringing you this episode. Marco and Isabel really felt that it was important to celebrate those who push their limits. And they found in the Ocean Globe Race a perfect metaphor for really reaching beyond what you might think is possible. Marco and Isabel weren't even sailors 4 years ago, and here they are sailing around the world. So in this week's episode, we'll review the tracker and see the progress the fleet made in the last week, as well as look ahead with the router. And I want to explain to you a little bit about how the rating system works for these boats and how we will finally score them on this leg. So let's take a look at the tracker and see where they're at currently. I'm going to start this week's tracker look with the current situation and where the boats are today, Wednesday, October 4th, but I'm going to rewind it and show you some important features as the boats exited the doldrums, which was up here in this area of no wind. So if I wind us back to about the 24th of September, and I'm sorry there's no wind data on here, but it's just the way the tracker works. The interesting thing here is to see Spirit of Helsinki, Maiden, and Translated all on the same line of latitude. Pendwick is a little bit ahead, but is also opting for a more easterly course, and Helsinki is really the one that invested in the west. As we progress through the doldrums and the exit of the doldrums, we see Pendwick moving over to the west a bit, more in line with Spirit of Helsinki, while Maiden, L'Esprit d'Equipe, and Translated stay on the more easterly and more direct route to Cape Town. But as I said a few weeks ago, historically, the boats on the west make better progress in transiting the doldrums and exiting the doldrums. And let's just see how this plays out. There's a pretty important moment right here where you see Maiden is actually on port tack and Translated also had to go on port tack. I'm sorry there's no wind data here, but I know that they're on port tack because these boats are splitting at about 90 degrees in direction. And, these boats are on starboard tack. These boats are on port tack. The wind is coming right here from the southeast. And what this split does is it puts Spirit of Helsinki and Pendwick even further to the west. And we're going to see as we go forward here through now September 29th and 30th that the west starts to pay. And Spirit of Helsinki, the red boat, and Pendwick, the purple boat, are stretching out a little bit on Translated and Maiden. And it'll bring us right up to today, which is October 4th. And we see the wind patterns here that they're dealing with, which is nice, strong southeasterly winds. Problem is they're trying to go to the southeast, so they're going upwind. They're not enjoying any easy miles here. It is notable that at this point in time, Translated has retaken first place in the scoring of the race. The scoring of the race, I'll get to it in another little blurb here in a second, but it's on handicap. Translated is a 65-foot boat. So is a Spirit of Helsinki, but Spirit of Helsinki is about 10 years newer or 15 years newer model boat. Pendwick is a 72-foot boat, so much longer. And the handicapping system is what makes the race a fair race. It takes into account the advantages that a longer boat, a heavier boat, a boat with more sail area may have on the rest of the fleet. So we'll get into that in a second, and we'll look at the router and see what's in store for the fleet in the week coming up. Now let's take a look at the router and what the fleet can expect in the week coming up. The router shows that the fleet should arrive in Cape Town around September 20th, which is about 14 days from now. And really the wind forecasts are only good for about 7 days. So while the router still routes the boat all the way in, and we do have an ETA, the reliability of that ETA is not great. But following along with that, I did run the router for both translated and Penduik 6. And again, with not a ton of accuracy, it looks very good for translated. The fleet is located in these positions. This is Penduik, and Spirit of Helsinki. Translated is here, the white boat, and Maiden is just to the east. And I'm going to run the router a day at a time, and let's take a look at the wind and the conditions over the next week. So moving forward to the 5th, the whole fleet's enjoying these southeasterly winds. Enjoying is a very loosely used word, because I'm sure they would hope to be seeing some westerly winds where they could get on a better angle and go faster. The high pressure, the South Atlantic high, at this moment is actually formulated down here at the latitude of Cape Town, which is extremely south. It's normally located up here, and that's what's spinning off these southeasterly winds that the fleet is dealing with. If we go forward a couple more days, here's the 7th of October. We see that South Atlantic high maybe moving a little bit north. There's a ridge developing over here, which is compressing the winds right along that edge and making them stronger. These are not great features. They are tantamount to a roadblock. In any case, the fleet has to get down around the southwest side of this high pressure system, because going along the east side is truly straight into the wind. So what we see here is the router is suggesting that the boats sail down on this route. You can see the whole route, even though we haven't got the weather yet. But unlike most of the races I did, it's going to be a while before the fleet really enjoys some downwind conditions. Maybe here a little bit, but they're perilously on the edge of a no-wind zone here. This is that South Atlantic high that's squashed and really not in a great form. This is a low-pressure system that came out of Rio de la Plata and is going across in the Southern Ocean. This is very typical. One of these goes by every 3 days. The fleet's not far enough down to enjoy those winds, and this group of boats is too slow to really keep up with these types of low-pressure systems. Here we see them battling away still on the 10th of October. It's about a week out. Now at this point, the router and the forecasts aren't very accurate, but again, progress is slow for the group. And here we have more shrapnel, I would call it, just the high pressure disintegrating. A small low pressure is developing here, which isn't great because they're going to have headwinds. Anyway, I'm going to advance this all the way along and see when we can expect translated to get to Cape Town, and it looks like it is about Thursday, October 19th, around midnight. Now this, you can see here, I'm running the ECM, that's the European model, and I ran the European model. I started this up here on Translated's position today, and I ran the European model also for Penduik from their position. And essentially, according to the European model, Penduik will only be translated into Cape Town by a day. And my best guess on the ratings is that Penduik owes translated a little more than 2 days for this leg. So things are looking good, as best as we can call it. This again is more than 2 weeks out, but it's interesting to review it. Now I want to give you a little bit of an explanation as to how this race is scored. How do we equate a 73-foot boat like Penduik 6 with a 53-foot boat, which obviously has less sail area, less overall length, a lower performance? Well, there's a mathematical formula that takes into account all the different design parameters of the boats and gives them a handicap. In other words, the smaller boats will get a seconds per mile advantage in their scoring. So we always have to remember that when we look at where the fleet is, because Penduik 6, being the biggest boat, is of course leading the fleet, but they may not win the leg on corrected time. Here's a quick overview of how the rating system works in the Ocean Globe Race. Why do we have a rating? Well, a rating allows a 73-foot boat like Penduik 6 to compete on equal footing with Sterna, which is a 53-foot boat. So obviously the longer boat should be faster, the longer boat probably has more sail area, the longer boat has more riding moment. So there's a mathematical formula in which all these key dimensions of the boats are fed into the formula, and it calculates how many minutes per day or how many seconds per mile Penduik would have to pay Sterna for the leg. The two columns here to the right are all relative to, we calculated this relative to translated because of course that's the boat that we're interested in. And over the course of the whole race, which is about 160, maybe 170 days, Penduik will owe translated about 11.2 days. On leg 1, we estimate that they will owe translated about 2.8 days. And if we look at what translated will owe Sterna, the lowest rating boat in the fleet, translated will owe Sterna 6.8 days. So as the fleet comes into Cape Town, what'll be exciting is to start the clock with Penduik, see if translated can get in there in less than 2.8 days and win the class, and see if Sterna, for example, is more than 1.7 days behind. If so, translated would be the winner of that leg. And as we saw in the other clip, currently, as calculated where they are so far and how many days they've spent sailing so far, translated is winning the race. So that's a wrap on episode 5. The fleet has about 2 weeks left to Cape Town. I'm sure they're happy to be through the doldrums and done with that inconsistency and volatility. But they're slogging away upwind on port tack, and it hasn't really been an easy ride down to Cape Town. So I'm sure they're really looking forward to getting there. And as always, let's remember, we all need to believe in humans.